So, hey everybody, welcome back to a awesome new show. I put these out, these longer form ones out when I have something really interesting to bring to you, something kind of unusual, right? Not just the usual yada yada, but something like, oh, this is cool. And if you saw the title of this one, it's got a kind of a cheeky title like, how can you make more profit without having to make more money? How's that possible work, John? Are we talking about tax evasion? No, we're talking about something even better. We're talking profit increasing, not tax evasion. And I don't know crap about this, so which is why I have a guest speaker on today who does know quite a lot about this. Her name is Abby Winteregg, and she works with Profit First, and she has the magical knowledge of how you can actually get more profit out of the existing revenue you have without, firing half the staff or anything silly. So actually, I usually like to let people kind of introduce themselves and kind of give an own version of what it is they do. So Abby, introduce yourself. Tell folks what you do.
Sure. So, like he said, I'm Abby. My company is Matterhorn Business Development. We're a family run and owned business consulting company. And basically, I grew up kind of in the finance area of my dad's various companies. I just kind of got thrown in the fire there. And he was a business consultant for my entire life, basically, with a background in dentistry. So I grew up in kind of the dentistry consulting. Do we need to redo that?
He was one of the most successful consultants, I think, on the planet. Actually,
Yes,
he
yes,
is world renowned. He was the tops of the tops, and he went, like just phenomenal. So yeah,
right.
you're being modest, but I won't be
It's
modest for
true.
you. You grew up in a royalty of consulting and making like I don't know how many thousands of practices just exploded with that bit of help, and
Hmm.
you are part of that dynasty, as it were. So yeah, don't
Yes, and
undersell
I'm
it. Yeah.
thanks for being my hype man, John.
That's
but
my pleasure.
but yeah, I did grow up in that world. Kind of I started working with him just because I needed gas money, and it. Long story short, I ended up eventually becoming client facing with him, and just using my own experience plus all of the time that he spent mentoring me. I started working with clients myself. And what we're here specifically to talk about today is a cash management system called Profit First, which is based off of a book called Profit First by Mike Malowitz. And I'm actually certified in that system. So I've worked with Mike and his team. I've literally been to Mike Malowitz's house. I have his email address. I can reach out to him if I need to. So I'm really tight into the community, and I know all the ins and outs of this system and how you can immediately start increasing your profit. And that's what I help people do. I help them not only grow their business and grow their revenue, but actually keep some of that money so that their expenses aren't growing with their revenue.
Okay, so I'm just gonna ask you, how do you do that? I mean, okay, just give me a nutshell. Everybody wants to know how do you do that? Like, what's the steps that you do? Like, what kind of things do you get someone through?
Mhm. So, really, you need to form some habits around money in order to do this. And, money and the finances are not business owners' favorite parts of their practice, usually. They like making it, making more money is very fun. Spending that money can also be very fun. But looking at what you're spending and seeing that number at the end of your profit and loss at the end of the day is usually not fun. So normally what ends up happening is people just kind of ignore that. They leave it to their accountant, they leave it to maybe an employee, and they don't really pay attention to what's going in and out of the bank account. It's just, did we see more new patients? Did we make more money? Am I $1 million practice yet? All of those great milestones, but $1 million practice doesn't mean anything if you still are behind on your own mortgage payment, or you struggle to make payroll, or you can't pay your tax bill at the end of the year, all of these things. So what I really love about Profit First is it works off of people's inherent habits. You don't have to become some accountant or finance guru or Excel sheet nerd like I am in order to use this system. It's really just a habit based system to manage your money. So just a quick overview of it, because I could do a whole hour presentation on this, but I'm not going to totally talk your ear off. Um, But basically, the idea is, we all know what a profit and loss statement is. That's your revenue minus your expenses equals your profit. So at the end of the year, the end of the quarter, you look at what was made at the end of that quarter, right? So most of the time, we're just looking at a profit and loss statement at the end of the quarter, the end of the year, whatever your accountant or bookkeeper provides you. And it's using that same accounting formula of revenue minus expenses equals profit. So you have all of your income that comes in, you take out all of those expenses, and what's left over is your profit and what you as the owner get to take home. The problem is there's this accounting wizardry that happens in QuickBooks and on P&Ls, and sometimes that number on the P&L isn't what's actually in your bank account. So think about last time your accountant said, "Wow, you profited $50,000." And then you said, "That's great, but where is that $50,000? Because it's not in my bank account," right? So that's the way you're being taxed per the government, but that's not what's happening with your actual cash. Because within your profit and loss, they can do certain write offs. And if you make a large purchase, it might show up on your balance sheet instead of your profit and loss. And this is all this boring stuff that no business owner wants to think about, right? So with profit first, we're kind of flipping the script on all of this. So we swap that formula, and the formula is revenue minus profit equals expenses. So all of your money comes in, you set aside your profit first. That's why the system is called profit first. And then your expenses are what's left over, and you run your practice on what's left. Now, that doesn't mean you don't pay your bills or you don't pay your staff or you're a greedy owner who's taking all of the money for yourself. It means that now you have to get innovative. Maybe you wanted to buy a new piece of equipment, but after taking your profit first and actually paying yourself, you find you can't quite afford that equipment yet. So maybe you wait until next quarter when you actually can afford it. Or maybe you find a used version of what you need or something like that. It makes one start to become more innovative about their spending instead of just looking at a bank account and seeing a big pile of cash that is endlessly there for you that you can keep draining, right? So that's the basic gist of the system. And the way that we split all of this up is into opening a few different bank accounts so that you can easily see where your money is. You don't have to open your profit and loss or ask your accountant if you can afford something or wait for your P&L to hit your inbox before you make a financial decision. The money is in your bank accounts and you can see what that money is for. So when we say profit first, that includes an account specifically titled profit, an account for owner's compensation, and an account for tax. Because I know pretty much every business owner I work with before implementing this system struggles to pay their tax bill at the end of the year. We all know we should be setting aside for it, but there are other expenses that come up, right? So with this system, you're automatically going to be setting aside for that tax money, and your tax bill is no longer going to be a problem. So when your revenue comes in, it's going to be going into these different accounts, and the last account that gets money is your operating expenses account. And then that's what your business can afford. That's where you're going to make your financial decisions of, can I hire more staff? Can I buy that new equipment? Can I give John all of my money so he can get me more new patients? That's how you're going to determine these financial decisions.
Wow. So it's not just a philosophy of just no, no, you can't have this. No. I like how, okay, so it really puts the onus on the business to make it more efficient. Like your way, you get your profit first, from what I understand you're saying here. You get your money out of the business first. Like, I got to have this to live. I'm the big dog. I got to live. I got a life to pay for. I got
Mhm.
world, right? And then this forces you to save money because like every business owner, I'm guilty of this. Sometimes you say, oh, F it, it's $500, I'll pay it, right? I just rather solve this problem with some money, or buy something I can't quite afford, but okay, fine. And I realize this system seems like, okay, it puts the onus on the business to be smarter about how you spend your money, which is an easy place to lose it. So I guess you're really benefiting from it's not discipline. Like, yeah, I guess you said innovation, right? It's just like an
Hmm.
innovation forces you to be a little smarter when you could easily be a little slacker, right? I've always noticed how like $500 to me personally is a lot more than $500 to my business, but it's still $500, right? Like it's the same $500, but I'll blow $500 in the business on something dumb where I wouldn't blow it on my personal life, right? So I can kind of see where this whole thing comes from. Okay, here's a question. So this is a completely different concept. Like this is not taught in school. This is like
Hmm.
Rebel Alliance, accounting here in terms of like how
Hmm.
you think about stuff. What's the biggest misconception people have when they kind of find out about this process? What's their biggest like? Oh no, what was their objection or worry?
Probably the biggest one is that it's a lot of work. Like people hear 5 bank accounts and they think that means that it's going to be a lot of extra work and take a lot of time. Because you would open an income account. So all of the deposits are coming into one account. It's separate from your operating expenses, it's separated from everything else. And then you pick a certain interval of time that you want to make allocations out of that account, and you divvy up that money into a profit account, compensation account, tax account, operating expense account. So that's 5 bank accounts at the very least. I have some people who like having a separate payroll account or a building expansion account or equipment account, whatever. You can have more bank accounts, but a lot of people hear 5 bank accounts and it's like, oh wow, that sounds very complicated, and then I have to sit down and make allocations, and it sounds so hard, but really once you have it set up, you just make those allocations every week or every other week. It takes 5 minutes, and then your money is there and you see where it's supposed to go. It's really not a lot of work. I've also had bookkeepers or clients bookkeepers who are like, oh my gosh, there's so many transfers, but really everything is being transferred in intervals. It's not like you're making bank transfers every single day. So it's really not that extra work for your bookkeeper either. It's very easy, and really it saves you money and time because you now know what money you actually have to spend instead of having this endless uh fountain just draining out of your bank account that I know we've all experienced before.
Yeah, right. And so, well, it seems like a small price to pay. Like if you want to be in charge of, if you want your business to be profitable for sure, and the ability to take your money out and know that you've got your P's and Q's covered. Because I mean, I think the owner of the company is usually the most valuable employee. And if the most
Mhm.
valuable employee is not being well paid and can't, is worried about the rent or the mortgage or something, it's not a good place to be. So I can imagine that. Okay, so here's the thing. So case studies, what kind of results have you seen with this? Like let's put some numbers on some specifics, like
Mhm.
what do you see, like give me is it 2% more profitable, how's it, give me an idea of what someone could expect out of this.
Yeah. So, generally, my chiropractors, because I do work with other industries, but I have several chiropractors I'm working with, and the percentage we aim for are going to be dependent on your revenue range. So, most of my chiropractors are in that 750,000 to 100 to $1 million range, and at that point, we want to see operating expenses at 50%, which means the other 50% is going to profit, tax, and the owner's pay, right? So all my chiropractic clients have been able to achieve that. The time frame that they're able to achieve that in does depend on their own execution. Some are more aggressive and look at the expenses more, or we also work with them on growth strategies. So they're growing as they're becoming more profitable, which really amplifies things. So it's also definitely dependent on the person's own drive and attention to implementation. But everyone that I've worked with so far has been able to achieve that 50% profitability mark and sometimes beyond. And I have one chiropractor client where she had enough set away to take 3 months off for her maternity leave. She didn't even step foot in the practice for her maternity leave. I have another client who has bought, I don't know how many rental investment properties now. So she's taking her profit and turning it into even more money. I have another client who expanded into medical services. So he's now doing injections and has a nurse practitioner in his practice. So really, I've had everyone able to expand in some way. It might be within the business or it might be personally, but they've been able to pretty quickly. I would say within the first quarter, that you definitely see results right away because you're immediately putting that money aside. You're immediately seeing those accounts grow, which is fun. But now that I've been working with people over years, that it just keeps growing, and the potential for the growth of the practice and the personal growth is almost endless when you have a system like this in place.
Wow, it just seems like a really savvy way of it's like you're managing the same flow of money, but in such a savvy way that it's always
Hmm.
there for you. And you're
Hmm.
to get a 50% overhead, so you get down to 50% general overhead. That's pretty good because then when you grow another, add another $10,000 to your month or something, you've just added $5,000 to El Jefe's bottom line here. That's a lot of fun, right? That's
Yes,
cool. You
exactly.
know, okay, because sometimes you can almost grow your way to unprofitability because you start losing track of your overhead, and it's such people call it a dull subject or whatever, but it's the scoreboard we're playing with, right? I mean, who cares? You have $1 million practice if you're got a $1.1 million in expenses, right? Like that's terrible. So great,
Hmm.
great, and you can always try outgrowing it, but if you're outgrowing it at a loss, it still doesn't help. So yeah, interesting. So
And I was just gonna say, and people at that point get burned out and overworked, and then it's not fun anymore. Like, every chiropractor I know is there because they want to help people and because they enjoy it. Some of my clients don't want to be the main chiro in the office and they want to be more in a CEO role, which is fine. But if you're burning yourself out, burning the candle at both ends, trying to make $1 million instead of 1.1 million in expenses, it becomes not fun and you get burned out, and I've seen that happen, and it's not fun to watch. So that's part of why I love what I do, is I love getting to do quarterly reviews with people, and they get so excited to get on a call with me, and they're like, today's profit day. They get to take a distribution at the end of every quarter, and then we talk about what they're going to do with it. And it's just great to see that improvement and that turnaround from being burned out to being happy in their practice.
well, it sounds like common sense, and it's kind of what we want to do and support the practitioners because it's a tough world to live out there. We got recessions and God knows what else going on out there. Being smart with your money is, I think, I mean, you don't live long if you're not smart with your money. You don't make it very long. Okay, so let me ask this: so, how can someone get hold of you? They want to ask more questions. I must have missed some questions maybe here and there. If they have questions for you or want to reach out and contact you, how do they do that?
So our website is matterhornbizdev.com. So matterhornbizdev.com. It's a bit of a mouthful. And on that site you can book a free instant assessment with me. So I'll sit down and talk about your practices, numbers, and how this would apply to you. Because even per chiropractor, I have to kind of change things, and people have different financial goals and are in different revenue ranges. And then I also highly suggest checking out our YouTube channel. We put out a lot of videos over there, and I have a whole Profit First playlist over there that you can get a lot more information from if you check out that playlist. So if you just type in Matterhorn Business Development into YouTube, we'll pop right up there. Mhm.
Okay, well, I really appreciate your time, and I'm glad to find that it wasn't some hokey, weird magic trick or tax evasion that actually releases this thing. And I love the idea. I love what you're doing. It's a very practical kind of guidance, and I like how it has almost immediate results. We're not like, oh, do this, and by next year you'll have more profit. No, do this in a few weeks. You immediately start the healing process, and you'll be more profitable. And then by the next quarter, you're laughing. I love stuff that works that fast because I'm an impatient kind of guy. So maybe we'll talk later. Hey, so okay. So thank you very much for your time, and we will hopefully help a lot of people with it.